Hey everyone, Rob from Ready to Roll, and I'm here to talk about, once again, Shadespire. So here's some things that have been going on in the past 2.5 weeks since the game launched, and since the last time I talked to you about it. Good and bad. So let's start off with the Grand Clash at Blood and Glory. We had a winner in the Sepulchral Guard. The winning player, I don't know if they work for Warhammer or they're a playtester. I've seen different things going around to the point where I'm not entirely sure, so I'm not going to make claim of what they are. But they did have an advanced copy of the Guard. They had at least a few weeks with them. They were able to play games with the cards, look at the cards, find synergy, stuff like that. So some people are up in arms like, oh, why were they allowed to play? Why were they allowed to enter? You know, there's only 100 spots. Why not give it to someone who, you know, hasn't had that time, or so that way everyone's on a level playing field? Personally, I don't care. I don't take too much offense to that person having it. Maybe if I was playing at the event and I played them and I lost, maybe I would feel differently. But overall, I don't think that's that bad, because I think there were other people there who had that advantage as well, yet the person who came in second place that they faced in the grand finale, the final bout, didn't have that. So I think it's actually a good indicator that the game is noob or newcomer friendly enough that people who haven't picked it up or haven't had it as long can go toe-to-toe with people that have. The other thing to note is that the Khorne Bloodbound was the chosen warband of the runner-up. A lot of people prior to the release of Orruks and Undead were saying that the Stormcast were, you know, a mile ahead of the Bloodbound. I found that to be more because of the way that people were trying to play the Bloodbound. They were trying to play them the way that I think Orruks play, which is, you know, charge in and deal damage. But the Khorne Bloodbound just don't have that capability against the Stormcast. So I think that was a bit of an unfair comparison. So I hope that people now seeing the Bloodbound come in second realize that, okay, they actually are on a level playing field. That said, I have not been playing Bloodbound or Stormcast against Undead or Orruks, but I have been playing Orruks for Skeletons. So as it stands as I record this video, I am currently 5-2 in my total Shadespire games. My first 3 games were as Stormcast versus Khorne. I won all 3 of those. Then I played Khorne versus Stormcast. I lost that. And then I've played 3 games as Orruks for Skeletons. Won the first 2 and I lost the last. So I'm 2-1 Orruks for Skeletons. I'm playing a no objective deck, and you can actually find that deck in the description below if you'd like to. People have been talking about it over on the Facebook group for Shadespire, and you know, lots of good ideas going on over there. So I think there's a lot of fun to be had. I think each warband has a distinct feel, right? I think your Stormcast are your slow-moving, heavy-hitting, but also very heavy defense. I think they're the least likely to die in the game type of warband. You know, they're able to withstand damage. I think they're pretty good at holding objectives, but I've been seeing people kind of playing around with the idea of making them very offensive. So rather than sit and hold objectives, rush forward and, you know, eradicate the enemy because they have the means to do so. On the other hand, you know, Khorne, I think, are pretty good objective grabbers. I think they're more or less the all-rounders of the group. You know, they have 5 people, so that's the second most. They have a couple people that died. They have a couple people that can live. They have some unique abilities in there. The Orruks, which are probably my main warband, you know, charge and swing, basically, is the way that I've been playing them. That's the way I've been seeing a lot of people play them. And I've had pretty good success. I'm 2-1. And I'll talk about my those 3 games in a moment, as what happened through them and the way I've been playing them and why I lost the game I did lose. And then lastly, the Undead, I think, are really good for a player who has a really good strategic mind for checks and balances and, you know, and where to trade things off, right? You know, it's, do you throw your petitioners up front to be the fodder so that way your other guys can charge in and have them be more offensive? Or are you going to keep your petitioners back and your warden back and kind of just keep your other 3 named characters up to deal damage and kind of deal with the enemy's front line? So I think there's a lot of good ways to play. And there's a lot of variations, so whatever your playstyle is, there's a warband for you. And I think each warband has the flexibility to play basically however you want. But I'm going to talk a little bit about Orruks and Skeletons. So I did win the first 2 games, and those games were close. I think I won 7 honor to 6 and then 8 honor to 5. And both of those games were, you know, my first 2 games with Orruks. They were my roommate's first 2 games with Skeletons. And they were both pretty close games. We were figuring out the nuances. He had been playing Khorne mostly. I had been playing Stormcast. And this is the first time that we had to make completely custom decks. Because basically what we did before is we took the Stormcast and Khorne decks and we kind of just traded stuff out, but we left them mostly as is. Whereas with these, it's okay, we have to make a completely new deck. We took cards out of the core set. We took cards that we were taking in those things. And it was good. I think the Orruks work well when you can kind of place them all at the front of your board, kind of abutting the enemy player's board, and kind of place objectives behind you. Like I said, I have no whole objectives, so I just place the objectives as far back as mine as possible to prevent my enemy from getting them. And I think charging works. Especially against skeletons, you can count on, probably a glory for killing one of them at least, if not two. There's the glory for, if you get the card, I forget the name of it, but where you charge with at least three fighters in a phase. There's the card where if each of your fighters are adjacent to an enemy fighter at the end of the phase. There's a lot of good things in there. There's one for if your leader specifically takes out one enemy fighter, you get an extra one for that. So there's a lot of good cards that will give the Orruks honor early on and at the end of the first phase that aren't objectives, so long as you can count on your opponent. And I think if you're the one placing the board, right, or so if your opponent loses the initial roll-off, you can kind of see, okay, how do I best get my fighters in position to attack the enemy? On the opposite side, if your opponent's smart and they know you're playing that kind of orc, they can put the board in a way where most of your starting spots are back, so it makes you have to move up. It really reduces your effectiveness. But then conversely, you're placing all of the objective tokens back away from them, so that you make them come to you anyways. So I'm looking forward to getting in games against Khorne and Stormcast as the Orruks, especially where the skeletons I've been facing have been extremely objective focused. The holding, hold 1 through 5, and then holding the 1 and 2, the 3 and 4, holding 3 different ones. I know my roommate's been running the card where, there's a enemy an ally fighter in each of the boards. There's a lot of interesting things. So he plays a very non-attacky skeleton to the point where I think he attacked me twice out of his 12 activations in the game we played that I actually lost. He made it a point to not attack me because he knew I had cards that, with standing damage, he didn't want me to inspire and do all that stuff. So that was actually a really good play on his part. So Orruks are fun. I'm going to be playing them probably at a local event this upcoming weekend, as long as I can make it to that. So I'm looking forward to playing against more people, finding out more strategies, and testing my mettle that way. And the last thing I'm here to talk about is something I can only really call the card controversy. There is, especially if you go over on the Warhammer Underworld Shadespire Facebook group, I'm sure it's happening on the Reddit too, and anywhere else people are talking about it. People are fighting over what cards mean. And it goes from discussion of, oh hey, this is how I'm reading this card, is that what it means, to full-on name-calling and just pettiness. Again, I forget the name of the card. I should have had it in front of me before I started recording. But there was a card where it's like 1 range, 2 dice for the swords, and does 1 damage. But as a reaction, you can move this fighter 1 hex to declaring the attack. And a lot of people are saying, well, you're supposed to move the fighter first and then you attack. And people are saying, no, you attack and then as a reaction, you move the fighter and kind of move them and then you finish your attack. And there was a lot of back and forth. And originally I had read it as, okay, well, you move and you attack. And then I was convinced to the side of, well, you have to attack and then you can use a reaction. So that way you can just, you can attack and then you can shift around them. Or I was thinking you could even pull off them and have the attack fizzle out if you just wanted the free push. And then someone pointed out, somewhere in the rulebook, it actually breaks down the steps for an attack, for example. So it's declare that you're making an attack. And then the next step is choose a legal enemy unit. So in theory, the way that I'm understanding this card now is you declare you're making an attack, using your action to move, and then declaring your target, which means you can push and then attack, so long as your opponent wouldn't then be able to use your reaction before you. So it's interesting the way that some of these things are worded, and there's a lot of controversy over the word them on cards, because there are people who either won't acknowledge, or in certain situations it does kind of make sense, that the word them doesn't apply to, or can't substitute for him or her. So there's a card with Oberyn, the card where he kind of deals lightning damage adjacent to his target. And people are saying, well, no, it's when he takes damage, because it says them. And it's like, well, no, them means Oberyn, not the enemy. So there's a lot of stuff like that where I think Games Workshop needs to release an FAQ, just in plain English, being like, that card means when Oberyn attacks. That card means you can push and then do this. And just kind of say, yeah, these are the steps, this is why. This is how we're reading it, because a lot of the wording is causing a lot of confusion, and unfortunately a lot of fighting within the online community at the very least. Just to the point where I don't know how aware the TO for this game or this event I'm going to is, so I'm probably going to talk to them ahead of time and at least warn them, because I don't know if they're fully in it or they're just a local game store and they just want to hold an event to sell more stuff. I don't know. But I'm also going to make a point of talking to each of my opponents beforehand and trying to come up with a resolution mechanic. Maybe we do a roll, it's... crit and axes is mine, or support and swords is you. Basically, the equivalent of a 4-up and 40k for a thing, or if we can get the TO to make a decision. But I think a big part of that is going to be communicating with your opponent and just making sure you can figure all that out. And I'm actually going to be compiling, so long as Games Workshop doesn't put together an FAQ by the time I get to it, I'm going to be compiling just kind of like what I think are the 7 worst cards that are still the most up in the air, that have the most room for interpretation, that we really need an FAQ on. So you can expect that probably Friday or Saturday, so long as an actual FAQ doesn't come out before then. Again, I've been Rob. Thank you very much for watching. Make sure you follow us on ReadyToRoll.com and then across Facebook, Instagram, Twitter, Twitch, Patreon, YouTube, basically wherever you have social media. We are there as Ready to Roll, or in the case of Twitter and Twitch, Ready_to_roll. Again, I have been Rob. You guys have been awesome. I'll catch you guys next time.